Welcome to the Blue Pill podcast, remembering who we are and where we are. I'm Carolina Herbert, the founder of the Blue Pill Institute for Expressive Arts, Therapy and Leadership. This podcast is a gathering place for practitioners, artists, healers and leaders who are doing some of the most important and most demanding work in the world, often in places and with people that the mainstream rarely sees or hears about. So in each episode, I will be in conversation with someone whose work really moves me, someone who shows up day after day for human beings in crisis, or who are in grief, or in the process of finding their way back to themselves. Today, I'm so honored to be speaking with Mike Ayvazian. Mike Ayvazian was born in 1976 in Beirut in Lebanon and is a Lebanese-Armenian theatre practitioner, expressive arts therapist and psychodrama facilitator. After completing his BA and Masters in Theatre Studies, Mike deepened his commitment to working with vulnerable communities, going on to gain advanced qualifications in expressive arts therapy and social change. He's been working professionally in his field since 2010, alongside training individuals and corporate professionals. Since the Beirut blast, Mike has been working primarily with survivors of all ages and backgrounds, as well as frontline workers, supporting well-being and self-care in the midst of ongoing crisis. He also teaches acting, theatre, and art and drama therapy at schools and universities across Lebanon, at both undergraduate and postgraduate level. Mike has co-founded two NGOs in Lebanon, Hilim in 1999 and Astarte in 2016, which provides arts therapies, training, coaching, and community art. He is currently pursuing his doctorate in expressive arts therapy and social change at the European Graduate School, while continuing his work with vulnerable populations in Lebanon, Syria, and Armenia. So, wow, I'm so delighted to have you here today, Mike. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
And we've known each other since 2010, I think it is, when we met at the European Graduate School. And when I was thinking about starting the Blue Pill podcast, I thought you'd be the first person I wanted to interview. That's because I know that you are currently going out day by day in Lebanon, working with displaced children, young people and families in the midst of war, using expressive arts as a way of reaching out what words alone cannot reach. And I really felt like, this is such profound work that you're doing. So I'd love to, hear a bit more about you and, how you got into this work.
It's a funny story, actually. I first started when I was 11, and I don't think I even thought about it because I remember the incident very distinctly. I was in class at school. It was during the Civil War, and these older kids from school, older students, came to our classroom, and they were looking for volunteers to help them. It was around the Christmas period, and they had a group of orphans coming over, and they wanted to do some sort of, fun activity for them and something. And they were looking for volunteers, and they asked, who would like to help us? And I remember I didn't even think about raising my hand. My hand just went up all by itself. And I remember thinking, that's strange. Why is my hand up? And okay, fine, it's up. And basically that's how I started. And then there was this priest at school who told, when I was in high school, who told me, you were bitten by the social work bug when you were just a little kid, and there's no way of healing from that. I'm sorry, that's going to be you for the rest of your life. And basically that's what happened. So that's how I started. I was very young, and I just continued. And in our school, we had this social work program thankfully, that I was really able to go into. There was an amazing opportunity where they would encourage us to do like, to help those around us. And I did, and I never stopped. So that's how it started. And yeah, so this is what happened when I finished my master's in theater. I was like, okay, I need to do something else because I would love teaching and I would love to teach at university. But I really did not want to study, do a PhD in theater. Didn't feel like it. And this is when I discovered expressive arts therapy and social change. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I need. This is exactly what I have to learn. And that's how I went there, and that's how we met. So yeah.
Well, I love that, that automatic, your hand went up and
Yeah.
changed the course of your life, that something in you knew that this was the work for you.
Yeah.
And and it's learning about your work. You've done some remarkable work over the years. Could you say a little bit more about some of maybe the highlights of that work?
Oh, actually, I mean, a lot of things. Mostly like, so let's take away the part where I was a volunteer myself, when I was, underage. When I became an adult, just because I continued working in my school, where I became later a teacher and then head of a department. And so working with these young kids who are themselves, becoming volunteers and training them and accompanying them, that was a big highlight. And then later on, when once I finished my CAGs at EGS, coming back and actually thinking, okay, now I'm doing this seriously. Now I'm just not just volunteering. Now it's become, something that is kind of like a profession. And there were like a few years of floating. So I was, doing a lot of things, but mostly, in times of crisis, this is when, things bubble up. And when the Beirut blast happened, it just took us less than 24 hours my friends and I, to create this center where we started providing free art therapies for all those we could help. And we ended up helping like more than 5,000 people. And the center is still going on, it's still doing. I had to step away because I had so many other things to take care of. So that is something I'm very proud of, like during the times of crisis. And mostly because we had to, collaborating with other NGOs, they asked us like, we would like a feedback from the people you're helping. And the feedback has always been so good that I feel so privileged and so honored and so lucky to be able to provide that. And I'm very happy with that. Recently, my most, so working with oh my God, so many things in my head. I'm so sorry. It's like working in Syria during the war as well. I would go there and train young people in doing theater, street theater and expressive arts therapy and psychodrama and drama therapy with, with the people they work with, training frontliners. I'm very proud of that. Also recently, so other than working with, the displaced people here, recently, there are two projects that are very dear to me. The first one I did in October, where because of the war and the ongoing crisis in Lebanon, lots of public schools have forsaken their arts programs. And so there were no more theater classes in public schools. So I got contacted by l'Association Internationale de la Francophonie, the Francophone International Association, like if I could provide training for language teachers in public schools, so maybe they can do some theater with their students because that's important, And I was able to give training to almost 100 teachers in 12 public schools all around Lebanon, where they created, kind of a theater program with their students, and they presented some plays. We presented them in December. And it was just an amazing project. And seeing these kids so happy to be on stage, to express themselves, you know. And we did that with like zero budget. You know, the whole training was about doing theater with like zero budget and creating more of a community art experience than just, you know, teacher and students, where I encourage them to get everybody around them involved. And this is what happened. And I'm very proud of that. And also the work I've been doing with the kids who have been displaced from Artsakh in Armenia, where I'll be going in a couple of weeks to continue work. So I'm very proud of that as well. Yeah.
Wow, Mike. I mean, I feel like we could spend and linger time with each one of these offerings, right? You have such an incredible capacity to respond to exactly where the precise need is. You know, I'm so moved by, you know, what you're able to facilitate and to catalyze and to create in the midst of the most extreme situations. And I'm just curious, you know, about that ripple effect that happens, right? As a result, you know, you enabling those teachers to enable those young people to have their voice and their expression. You know, how do you think some of this work, you know, is affecting young people?
Well, the thing is, when I get contacted by you know, organisms who want to like provide either psychosocial support or, you know, any sort of artistic therapeutic, let's call it activity, for their beneficiaries, usually they either come to me or like I'm either working personally or through my NGO, which is Astarte that you mentioned. It is very important for me and for my, you know, my friends who are in my NGO with me, to make sure that the kids are not, how do I put this? That we provide a safe space for the kids to express themselves. This is very important because sometimes we're working in conditions that are not appropriate for therapy. Let's just say like a shelter where there are like hundreds of people going in and out, and we just want to take a small corner and work there with, you know, and it's not just with the kids, it's also with adults. You know, we don't work with just kids, we work with adults and all kinds of people. So the most important thing to us is providing this safe space where they can go back to just being how they would be if there was no crisis. And this is the most therapeutic thing we can do because we're still in crisis. It's difficult to, you know, provide therapy when this crisis is still going on, you know? So what we need to do is help whoever we're working with resource themselves, feel safe, and revert back to a state, at least during these hour and a half of each session, revert back to this place where they are how they should be if there was no crisis. So this is what is the most important work for me, you know, allowing them to express, to say, you know, working, for example, with, I remember in 2015, I was asked to work with refugee kids from Syria. And the NGO were like, yeah, we got to get them to talk about the war and how they feel about it and all of that. And I told them, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. If this is what you want from me, I will, no, I'd rather not do this project. If you want me to do this project, what I want is to get these adolescents, you know, these teenagers to just be themselves, to just, you know, be like how they're supposed to be, like, regardless of the fact they're displaced and everything. So they reluctantly agreed. And we ended up doing these sessions where, you know, we would be working like in an open space under a huge tree, and then in centers and all in different places. And I had this wonderful Syrian artist with me because we had to create a book by the end, an illustrated book by the end, which is a wonderful book. I can send you a copy. So what happened was we ended up creating fairy tales and poems and illustrations for them. And when they saw the illustrations and the poems, they're like, but please do not talk about the war in Syria. And I'm like, yeah, that's what you might think. Read between the lines. And if you read between the lines, it's all they talk about, but they talk about it in a different way. And it's not that it's a joyful experience, it's that the resolution at the end is a joyful one where they're like happy. They found solutions for their problems in the poems, in the drawings, in the stories, where during these sessions, they just became normal teenagers, talking about love, talking about clothes, talking about the things they really, really should care about at their age and not talk about, war and displacement. But when you read between the lines of the stories and the poems, it's there. The displacement is there, the war is there, the conflict. Let me call it a conflict. The conflict is there. And there's always, a resolution at the end. And to me, that's it. This is what they need. And they got to it. I didn't even push it that way. I was just, going along with what was happening. And I discovered that, well, this is what they need. Absolutely. I will provide that.
Well, you make such a powerful point, and it's evident from the impact, right? To bring young people into a place of remembering who they are rather than not get caught up with that situational injury, and to create something so restorative, and that sense of safety. And I get the real sense that you not only create that sense of safety, but you embody it. You are it, right? And it makes me wonder, what's been created within you and forged in you through this work.
You see, that's something I never thought about until recently. Um, you know, when I presented the subject of my, for my PhD, I had to actually self-reflect, and I hadn't done that. I don't know if I've ever done that before, but let's just say that what it has, I mean, I used to say that, when someone would ask me what makes you happy, I'd say like seeing people happy around me, and which sounds a bit, corny. Okay, but actually embodying that, in the sense that, look, I was born in Lebanon with both Syrian and Armenian descent. And you kind of wonder, like, why? Like, all these three heritages are full of wars and displacement and all of that. And I've come to the realization that, because I fought it at first, like there were times where I just wanted to, like a lot of young Lebanese people just wanted to leave. And a lot of them do, they'd rather go anywhere else where it's safe and peaceful. I don't know. But I've come to the realization that I think I was born here for a reason. And actually, the more I fulfill this, just like I said, my hand went out by itself. There's this push inside. And I realized the more I fulfill it, the happier I am, despite of, the crisis here. Because sometimes the conditions are really, really horrendous when you're being bombed and you don't know if, like, I'm going to an area somewhere in Lebanon and I don't know if the road is going to get bombed or the center where I'm going to be is going to get bombed and still go. But there's this sense of I'm right where right where I should be. And this is what I should be doing. And it's not an act of resistance, although it is an act of resistance, and we could take it there. But to me, it's more an act of being and fulfilling something. So
Power cut, I think.
Again, I'm so sorry for welcome to Lebanon.
Let's just kind of just settle back in, because I think I was just feeling so moved I feel so moved, Mike, by what you've just been sharing. And I think moved because, from when you raising your hand, all those years ago, and that sense of now coming into that awareness of you are in your alignment. And I wish too that you weren't in such a complex situation of war. If I could get you out of that any moment, I would. But I just am so touched that it's like what Michael Meade talks about as finding your genius, your kind of sole reason for being here. And it feels like you're really living in that embodiment.
This is what you remember, I told you we should talk about the spiritual aspect of it. And 2023, I was in really crisis mode. Like, what the hell? Why am I part of these three countries why do I have these three heritages? And, all three are riddled with, wars and conflicts, and why? And I did this spiritual, I don't know if you've heard of Akashic Records. So
Yeah.
I did that. First I was like, my friend suggested, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it, I don't, and the answer I got is that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly what you chose to be. Stop fighting it. Just continue doing what you do. Just be mindful that when you do it with love, which has always been, what I do, but, I'm more aware of it right now. And that's it. I just, let go. And it is what has kept me going on, like thinking that, just do it with love.
And that certainly comes across, in the way that you are both responding, but also dedicating, so much time and energy and commitment. And I know we've been talking recently, that you've been going out into often very unsafe situations where you are to help those who are displaced. And it'd be really great, if you were willing to share, what are you witnessing at the moment in Lebanon, and how are you experiencing the impact on young people's lives and families?
Well, it's kind of, I mean, sometimes I think for anyone who's not Lebanese or from the region, it will be very difficult to comprehend how people are reacting. You have this big dissonance in Lebanon. You have people who are displaced, who have lost everything they have. They lost their homes, they lost their lands, they might, not ever get back to their, where they grew up, where they used to live. Because of our dear neighbor grabbing lands, and but the way they deal with it would be incomprehensible, because it's all about, I don't want to use the word patriotism because I don't like that word much. But there's this sort of, if that's what we have to go through, then that's what we have to go through. And it's difficult, it's horrible, but things will get better and we will be better. And I know we use the word resilience a lot. That's another word I deeply dislike, because in Lebanon, resilience means getting used to what the conditions and not changing them. Whatever they throw at us, and we've been dealt like horrible cards for 50 years now. And yet we thrive, we survive, we thrive, because we have this resilience where we just, okay, if that's how things are, that's how things are. We will, survive this. Whereas what I want to see is people actually, when it comes, I'm talking about internal issues, not the wars that are, bigger than us, because these are influences from outside. But inside, we need to actually not accept things, but strive to change them, make things better. And in Lebanon, resilience means just accepting and living with it. Okay, I'll adapt. but we don't want that. I think we want, okay, we're so good at adapting, great, we're amazing that way, so resilient, but we also should work on making things better, you know, so that the youth will not have to leave, that we'll feel safe in our own country, you know. And this is recently what I've been working on as well with other NGOs, is working on this concept of, you know, being Lebanese. What does it mean to be Lebanese? What does it mean to just, you know, accept that we're all 18, 19 different faiths in a tiny country of 4 million people, really tiny speck, you know, in the Mediterranean. It's one of the smallest countries. And yet we still haven't learned to live together properly, but we can do it. We've seen that it can be done, you know. And so, yeah, I love I mean, we're so resilient, but we need to do better. And at the same time, so you have these people who are in shelters, who have lost everything, you know, but in parallel, you have people in Lebanon who are, you know, resilience. They're just partying all night and going to the beach, and, you know, in some areas that are safe, and just, you know, doing the things they usually do. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying there's a dissonance there, you know. So when somebody from not from Lebanon comes and see what's happening here, then it'll be super hard to believe, like, how the South is being bombed relentlessly, and in the North, people are partying at the beach. How is that? But that's how Lebanon is, and, you know, so all I want to do is let people help, I don't know, just convince people that we can do better. We can do so much better. And it is so possible for us to do so much better, and hopefully we will. Sorry, got a little bit political there.
Well, I mean, thank you, Mike. I mean, you're raising such important points, and I think you're absolutely right to say, you know, that it's very hard for, you know, even myself to not have been to Lebanon to know the context and the complexity. And I think you're bringing up a subject, you know, the word resilient, you know, it's interesting. I was looking at it again recently, you know, it's a word that was used it was born in a laboratory to describe how materials, you know, when they're compressed or stretched, bounce back to their original form. And then it was taken as a concept and imposed upon developmental psychology and how people respond to pressure or stress. And it makes no sense when I think about it, of like, we're not a material that bounces back to an original form, right? But yet
it's impossible for humans to revert back to, you know, after such a big event. It's almost impossible.
Right, exactly. So if we were to kind of almost throw out that word that's not really working, I don't think it's really working for the whole field. And what words in your language and your culture really can help us to understand what is going on inside the spirit of Lebanese people?
I like the word transformation. I don't know if it's the proper definition. I mean, we can say adapt. We can say, you know, yeah, adapt. I think we adapt. We thrive. We go on. But I think because any such experience is transformative, not always, you know, I think we should let it transform us into something better. And I mean that in a very practical way and in a very psychological and spiritual way. I think the transformation is very important. Like, if this happened, we cannot revert to how things were. We need to create a new reality, transform this reality into something that is actually positive. Because reverting back to how things were actually might bring back the same conditions that happened before. We need to transform that into something better, something safer, or, whatever. So I think transformation is a good word,
Yeah, it's
in my
brilliant.
opinion.
Well, it's brilliant, isn't it? Because you're ushering a whole new perspective as a result. And it makes me then curious, when you hold that vision in your work, what's happening? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? And how are you seeing that big word transformation kind of happening in small and micro ways? Can you give an example of, what you've been doing in Lebanon?
Yeah, so let's just say that whenever, we have very different cultural backgrounds in Lebanon. We're all Lebanese, but culturally we're very, like, as I said, 18 different faiths, and you have, other than the faiths, you have, social backgrounds and all of that. Transformation to me is meeting the others, when I go for any sort of session, or training, meeting the others and allowing them to touch me as well, not going there saying like, oh, I'm here to help you, but thinking, I'm here to work with you and, do this with you. I'm like, really, it is, transforming things together. Like, what can we do together? And allowing myself to not only be touched, obviously, by what's happening, but also allowing whatever is happening, whatever develops, whatever happens during the session to shape me again and again and transform me again and again. And what that means practically is, has to me has made me a better listener, a better observer as well, and has put my ego, has reduced whatever ego I have, like, to the minimum. And what it allows the people I work with to do is let them understand that also they have choices. It's so refreshing to see, for example, to see a kid going from, or even adults, going from, saying what they think they should say to actually saying what they really want to say. I'm going to give you a lovely example that I love. So after the blast, we were working with, victims of the blast, and not just victims. And I had like 4 or 5 groups of Syrian refugee women that I was working with. And we started the sessions, expressive arts therapy sessions. And after a couple of sessions, I felt that, it feels like they're kind of telling me what they think I need to hear, when we're sharing at the end. It didn't feel that genuine. It felt like textbook. So I adapted my way of working, and I got the help of my students who were studying drama therapy, who were women. And that was very important, obviously. And we just transformed the sessions. And we went from, these women who are, saying what they're supposed to say, to these women like expressing themselves with joy, with tears, with, shouts, with everything. And feeling, I could see the transformation, not just in how they were expressing, but with how they were holding their bodies as well. And that was very important. And even though the sessions were just like 12 or 14 sessions, to me, that was so important, because I knew there and then that they were a little better equipped to deal with the situation. And to me, that's very important. And with the kids, it happens as well. The first thing I tell the kids when I get the session, listen, because the shelters, the shelters are schools. Most of the shelters are schools. They're school buildings. Public schools are being used as shelters. So I get there, and it still feels like a school, even though there are like hundreds of families there. So when this tall, older guy arrives, me, like working with young kids, like, they call me sir and everything. I tell them, no, just call me by my name. And I have to explain to them, I'm not a teacher. I am not a teacher. This is not a classroom. You can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. Every feeling is valid. If you don't want to do something, I suggest for you, you have the right to say no and not do it, and just giving them that liberty, and allowing myself to be, a kid with them. I'm still the facilitator, I'm still the therapist, but I'm also a kid with them, and seeing, these things develop and transform, and them, opening up and everything. To me, that's everything. Just allowing things to happen, trying not to control, being an observant, and just, yeah, that's it. And it's difficult working with other NGOs. They want results, they want things they can track, you gotta write reports, what is happening, and everything. And sometimes the result cannot be measured on paper, but it can be measured, energetically. You can see them, you can feel them. It's not the thing, it's not what they say. It's how they hold themselves. It's what's happening inside. And I know this helps them later, because just like I said earlier, I get a lot of, messages from people I've worked with who years after just send me a message. They find me on social media, or I don't know. They send me a message and they're like, remember when this happened, this stuck with me, and thank you. And I just like, okay, that's it.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? Because you're helping them to find the gold of that resource and that alignment within themselves that you are holding the space for. And it makes me wonder, what would happen if there wasn't this kind of psychosocial support in a way that makes it so accessible, using the arts to express in this way and to feel that sense of safety and belonging, and to create an opportunity for voices to be really heard.
Yeah, look, we have a lot of people doing what I do. I'm not the only one, obviously. And it's so beautiful to see all these initiatives, even if it's not therapists, even if it's just, artists or just regular people who want to help and provide these artistic opportunities for the kids or the adults or anyone. It's just beautiful. And it's something I'm very proud of. There are a lot of initiatives in Lebanon. Some done by NGOs, some private initiatives, just an artist who's like, okay, I'm gonna go. And this is how I started. I mean, with the shelters, I started by just going there. Like, there are 2 shelters next to me, and I'm next to where I live. Like, okay, I'll start with that. I have a few extra materials, and I'll just, start with that. And then I got contacted by NGOs who were like, okay, we want to take what you do and do more. Okay, we'll do more. Why not? Why not? So yeah, from that sense, it's been really good. We really do come together as Lebanese people in times of crisis, despite the differences, despite whatever is happening, despite the political and social differences, we do come together. I mean, the number of initiatives to provide food and clothes for the displaced have been amazing, But yeah, we do have that, which is great. Is it enough? I don't know. This is where the art therapies and what we do can do just so much, and we have to accept the limitations of them. Like, we're here to provide a place for a safe space for people to express themselves and feel better and transform and get through the crisis. But eventually, it's not enough. It's obviously not enough. So yeah.
And it's kind of like that invisible dimension that you're also investing in, the one that years later someone can come back to you and say, that moment, that opportunity to find my voice or to express how I was really feeling stayed with me. It's maybe kept me going. And even though in the context of where you are, it may not feel like there's enough. You're providing such, it's like water in the desert, isn't it, for the hearts and souls of people that you care about. And I'm realizing that you're not only doing this in Lebanon, but you're also going to Armenia. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing there?
Okay, so I'm both Lebanese and Armenian, and I've been going constantly to Armenia since 2015, and every time I go, I will volunteer, volunteer here and there, but in 2023, in 2020, there was a war again in Artsakh. And in 2023, 120,000 Armenians were displaced, and they had to flee their ancestral lands and go to main Armenia, if you want. Doesn't make sense what I just said, but anyway. So I contacted an NGO called Frontline Therapist, and I was like, if I can help, I was in Armenia, I was like, if I can help in any way, and they suggested I go to a camp, a Hayordi camp, where there are kids from Artsakh who have lost a parent, mostly their dads, and if I can, volunteer and help. I was supposed to go for 1 day, ended up staying for much more than 1 day. And then last year, I spent almost the whole camp with them. And what I realized is that these kids do not have, how to put it? They do not have a good prospect for the future. They see a bleak future for many different reasons. They've been through a horrible trauma, losing a parent, displacement, war, and all of that. And then they got to a country they don't know. This is still Armenia, but it's not their land, it's not their regions. And they haven't always been met with open arms or helpful arms. There's a lot of judgment and, a lot of issues because of political stuff. And what I realized is that these kids were amazing, just amazing kids. I fell in love with each and every one of them, working with them, who just they have such good energy and they so want to get better. And what I will be doing is just concentrating my work, because I've worked with them. I've, done lots of activities, artistic activities with them, but it was, like PSS, mostly unfocused work, just, all around, make them feel better. What I want is just to focus more on getting them to find a new perspective for the future, a bright perspective. To give you an example, I'm not going to use the kids as an example, but sometimes, some of these women who are displaced, young women who, let's say, lost a husband, they're in their 20s and they lost their husband. Socially, in some circles, they're expected to just be a widow all their lives. That's it. That's your life. You're a widow now, and that's all you need to do. You're eternally a victim. And the same sometimes applies to the kids. They are seen as eternal victims, and I want to get them out of that perspective. Not forget that the victims, they are victims, in a way, but see a better future, see a brighter future. That's what I will be working on mostly. And I chose that for selfish reasons, obviously, as well. But no, it's because displacement has been part of my history as well. My grandpa is a survivor of the Armenian genocide, and he's been displaced from his ancestral land, went to Syria, started his family there, then moved to Lebanon, and so there's displacement there. And even during the civil war in Lebanon, I was with my family were displaced, a couple of times as well, during the horrible civil war. And then I saw people from the South being displaced in 96, 2006, 23, 24, and now And I've worked with people who have been displaced from Syria. So the whole displacement theme has been a constant part of my life, and I want to explore that as well and see what that is. But mostly my focus is on like really helping these amazing, truly, you have no idea how amazing these kids are. Just help them see a brighter future. Like, I'm completely in love with all of them.
Wow. Wow. Mike, thank you for sharing so much in what you just said, and the dedication and devotion that I'm witnessing is really quite humbling to bear witness to. And the fact that it comes from your own profoundly deep suffering is an ancestral suffering, almost makes me kind of see in a new light why you are so the best person placed to do this work. And at the same time, it makes me wonder, how do you take care of yourself in the midst of all of that, right?
Well, I do. I have a few mechanisms. So I have amazing friends. I have to say, I have an amazing support system. Family, friends. I'm very lucky that way. I also learned to ask for help, which is not something that was, that's not how I was brought up, being the eldest child, and with my cultural background, you don't ask for help, no. But I learned to ask for help, which has been a blessing. And the way I take care of myself is give myself breaks as well. I learned to do that because in 2020, after the explosion, I actually suffered from a burnout. At the end of 2021, I was completely burnt out. It was the economical crisis, the Beirut blast, COVID, and all of that. And I was working sometimes 16, 18 hours a day, not taking care of myself. And my body reacted, my brain reacted. I was not well at all. So yeah. And recently, with all the bombings happening, whenever they happen, this is what I do. You can see behind me, call it my anxiety wall. I just doodle and draw and, yeah, that's friends and this and yeah.
Well, it just says, to me that, it's not a work that you do in any sense of distance. You completely immerse yourself into it, and you are the instrument. You are the art form in that sense of you bringing your whole self. And so moved that you had to go through, such a difficult time of getting burnt out to then find a stronger sense of support and well-being, so that you can prevent that from happening in the future. But it just shows that you're human too, right? You're bringing your heart and soul to this work, and of course you're going to be impacted. And I'm so glad you've got your own creativity and your own creative expression and your community, and to be that support. But it's an unbelievable level of giving that I'm bearing witness to. And I'm just thinking of everyone who's listening from around the world to us talking, and I'm just wondering what is it that you'd want them to understand and perhaps take away from this, if they're feeling in any sense of the word helpless in how to respond to what's happening in Lebanon, but also impacted in any way by this conversation.
I don't know really. I mean, it sounds cliche, but we're all human, and we're all here on Earth to go through any experience. And to me, the best thing is, live your life, but just be aware of what is happening around you, and whatever you do it with love. And I mean, I don't want to get political. I mean, for people listening to me, I would say, just send us love. I think that would be, just send love our way. I think that good energy would be enough to transform things around us. Yeah.
Wow, what a profound message that you bring. And it's so moving, isn't it? Because it's so pure. It feels like it comes from a pure place within you. And that calls you again to call to others to come into who they really are at the core of themselves, that essence of love. And I almost feel like taking a moment just to kind of be with that, maybe in silence, just stillness as we've borne witness to you, to send you love and to send everyone that you're working with and connected to and going to meet and going to support, just a moment that we can really extend that. How does that feel if we just take that moment just to tune into that?
The world would be so much better if there was, more love.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the takeaway from my work, like, especially not just working with kids, working with adults as well. The amount of love they show is just amazing, and it's impossible to not be transformed by that as a human. And I just wish that everyone would, feel that kind of love, that kind of just free love, just heart to heart, energy to energy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you think of the word love that you're talking about, is there a symbol or an image that comes to you that can hold something of the enormity of this love that you have in your heart?
I always picture this ball of light, inside that is emanating. Um, and I keep thinking that, this ball of light we all have inside, if it's shining enough, it will meet other balls of light. And that connection of, these two lights will just make everything brighter and better. So just let that, that ball of light inside, emanate, light your path, light your way, meet other lights. I always say, the opposite of darkness is not light, it's love. So yeah.
Yes. I think your words have said everything that is needed. And and before we close, I just want to maybe linger in that for a moment, and maybe there's a sense of that in the breath between us. There is almost that kind of wish, prayer, longing that comes from what you just shared. That is such a profoundly powerful vision for the whole of humanity in these times. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful that you've joined me today, and I feel so much love for you and what you're doing there, and extend my support and care. And do let us know if there's anything else we can do to bring you that love and energy as we go through each day ahead.
Send us love, And I really, really, really hope things will be better soon. I would love for you to come visit my wonderful countries, you know, beautiful countries, Lebanon and Armenia, and just do amazing things together, and just just want to, like, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear.
If what you've heard today has moved you, please share this episode with anyone you think needs to hear it. If you'd love to find out more about the Blue Pearl Institute, our CPD programs, our community, and what's coming, you can find us at www.bluepearl-institute.com. And if you'd like to support Mike's work directly, his NGO Asate, you'll find the links and the details in the show notes below. And that's it for today from the Blue Pill podcast, remembering who we are and where we are. Until next time, stay connected to the love inside of you, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.